For ad-free listening, our newsletter, special deep dive episodes, and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com. Hello and welcome to That's Just Wild with me, Steve Backshall.
And me, Lizzie Daly.
And me, Sarah Roberts.
The podcast all about nature, wildlife, and how I once tracked a wounded leopard hunting down the warthog that speared her in a Namibian lightning storm.
I bet she was angry.
Yeah, she was. And today we're talking about the Flamboyant.
Yes, we're talking extravagant dances, vibrant crests, incredible hairdos, animals that are just a bit over the top, to be honest. Speaking of dancing, before we jump into this, there's one person on this call that has actually learned how to dance professionally.
Don't do it.
And his name
Don't do it.
rhymes
Why
with
didn't
B.
we have Steve as a topic with flamboyance? You could have been wearing one of your glittery suits now.
Can I just say, you actually can dance, so I feel like we can approach this topic. Can we?
I don't know about that.
How far did you get?
I mean, I did consider doing this in my Paso Doble costume, you know.
You should
Otherwise
have.
shirtless, apart from
Should we
the
hang up
glistening
now
sequin
and
top.
sort that out?
Oh, Sarah, you need to watch it. Steve can move.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you really don't.
Talk about flamboyant.
I think we should have one in person, to be fair.
It's never going to happen.
Just quickly, can we reference, obviously, this is Strictly Come Dancing. Steve did incredibly well on it. And my favourite part was the fact that there was one dance in particular, it was wildlife themed, right?
Yes, there was.
Oh, you just absolutely smashed it.
What was it? Well, of course he did. He's had years of experience practicing
Oh gosh,
that
what
now.
was it? It was the quick step which I did to the Jungle Book, Wanna Be Like You, and I did it as a chimpanzee.
Oh my God.
Yeah, swung in on a vine, did
Oh, I love
did an
you
impromptu
bossed it.
forward roll across the stage, and finished off fighting my partner for a banana on stage.
Can I just ask, was that your idea or was that the choreographer's idea?
It was a mix of both.
I love it. I'm sorry. It's iconic. You smashed it. It's fabulous in every way.
Well, I mean, talking about chimps, talking about primates, flamboyance may not be the most obvious kind of thing from that group, but there is a real definitive way that primates can use their back ends in a flamboyant way as an advertisement. So particularly things like baboons, when they are most receptive, the females will take on this massive, big, fleshy, big pink buttocks, which are basically saying to the males, "Come hither, I am ready." And from the males, the mandrill, for example, which is the biggest kind of monkey, the male mandrill, when he is in full ardor, his face flushes with
that's
blood
why.
and takes on this incredible bright red and bright blue appearance. It's
So cool.
incredibly dramatic, very visual, very flamboyant. I have also been the victim of baboon flamboyance because I was doing a piece to camera on Deadly. It was a conservation piece, a really serious one. And behind me,
Oh no.
over my shoulder, two baboons started going for it in a very non-PG-13 way. And the whole thing was captured on camera. I mean, obviously we could never show it on CBBC, but it was pretty visual.
Gosh. I mean, you entered that with saying you have been the victim of this. I did not know for a second where you were going there, Steve. It
Oh my gosh, no.
could have turned out a lot worse in my brain.
Different app. I'm curious though, that variation of colour, because you do see everything from kind of really bright to even like dull bottoms. And I'm just curious what drives that. Obviously, they have a bright bum to signal that dominance and sexual kind of desirability, if you like. But do we know why it changes at all, or why there may be some of that variation?
It is down to a flush of the hormones that come with that particularly receptive time of the month when they are, they're most receptive to male advances. And I would guess that the reason it happens at the rear end is that it's a bit that you can disguise when you need to. So, for example, if you're really looking to find a fella, then you can walk around with your back arched and your posterior up in the air, very, very obvious. If, on the other hand, you're feeding, you can sit down, or you can turn your back to the bushes or whatever, and you can make sure that you're not as visible to predators. So potentially it is a display that can be used at the right time while not disadvantaging you in ways that just ain't going to work.
Okay, so color is a big one. I know we're going to delve into a number of other species that have that kind of flamboyant color and vibrancy. But as we've already mentioned, dancing and behaviours are also another big part of it in the animal kingdom. Before I jump into some of my favourites, we've talked a little bit about how traits are selected for in the past in terms of evolutionary biology. And we've also talked about how certain traits are selected for despite being costly. You know, it's that whole idea that, well, look at me, I'm still fit and I can still grow an elaborate tail or have incredible behaviours that are energetically costly. The handicap principle. We've gone over that. There is something else I wanted to just reference, especially with bright red things. When you're talking about bums there, made me think of it. We all know about how, well, do you know that men generally are attracted to red
No.
things on women?
What?
No, I did not.
What do you mean we all know that?
I mean, the Special K advert,
Well,
obviously.
Well, I feel like everyone's heard of like
Baywatch.
the red dress or Baywatch is like a marine version for Sarah. But you know the impact of the effect of a red dress on men.
Are you telling me that Pamela Anderson has been selected for by evolution?
Well,
Marilyn
actually,
Monroe. I mean, come on. Where does
No,
that come from?
actually-
This is all blowing my mind, Lizzie.
So actually, yes, right? So yes, because for a while, I think it was just like seen in society as something that is attractive. But then scientists went away to actually study it and found that in men, and I'm talking about heterosexual setup now, a man and a woman, men generally find red attractive on women. And even if it's like a small bit of colour, it's something that's called sensory bias. And it's where we have pre-existing preferences for colours, and men do have that with women. And so this other theory and how it kind of displays in the natural world and in the animal kingdom can be seen in species like some birds, which I know we'll go on to talk a bit more about. But I just think it's quite interesting how we'd have more bias to some colours more than others, and how that can actually kind of change how we're selected for certain things are selected for.
Are you suggesting that the bright red bottoms of our primate cousins, that this could be a throwback to that?
I didn't actually make that direct connection, but yeah.
I love that idea. It's
Oh, imagine
probably utter nonsense, but how cool. Wow.
Yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, so certain colours are selected for, but I wouldn't want to back that up as a scientific confirmation that that's where it began. So one species that has mastered the combination of both colour and behaviour in terms of dancing has to be the peacock spider. They're about the size of a grain of rice. It's about 50 different species, endemic to Australia, and they're a type of jumping spider, and they are phenomenal. They have what I can only describe, and I actually don't know if this is the scientific term, but a giant abdominal flap, which is one of the most iridescent, colourful things that they whip out when they need to flirt with a female.
Well, the giant abdominal flap, it's the guy that has that, not the female.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's like a kilt.
Oh, I love that. I guess so. It doesn't hang down. It more kind of flaps up. It doesn't like flap in the wind. Like it's a full display. So what you'll get is this male. Normally, you see the legs go up first. It's the back legs that will start to kind of do this really hypnotic dance. This kind of going left and right, and then following it comes this big, vibrant, colourful flap, and that varies across different species of peacock spider. So you've got vivid reds and blues and greens and oranges, and it's a whole performance where he'll be using vibrations. He'll be changing the shape of that kind of abdomen that he's got kind of in the air. He'll be moving back and forth with the legs. It is rhythmic, it is hypnotic, and it's arguably one of the best displays when it comes to flamboyance, in my opinion.
Steve, did you not do one on Strictly based on this spider then?
It's quite similar to my Paso Doble, I have to say.
Oh, right.
Yeah. We filmed peacock spiders earlier this year in Perth, in Australia. I'd found on Instagram this guy called Michael Lunn, who takes world-class images of peacock spiders, and followed it up and said, can I come and film with you? We were going to be in Perth, and so I popped over. He was 16 years old, and during the pandemic, when he was like 12, 13, he discovered that he had peacock spiders in his back garden. It's not very big. It's like, urban backyard. And I rocked up and I went, oh, what have we done here? There's just no way this is going to work. And we went scouting around an alleyway down the side of his house and almost instantly found a peacock jumping spider. The most beautiful miracle in miniature you have ever seen. And then Michael took a little stick and he put it down, and this wild male peacock jumping spider that we had just found, put it on one end of the stick, and then took a female and put it on the other end of the stick, and he started dancing instantly. It was mesmerizing. It was no more than, I don't know, a hand's length away from my face as it put on this full glorious display for the female, going from side to side with this incredible Mexican sombrero in fabulous fiesta colors, erected as a glorious shield to entrance her. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And then we found another 2 different species in his backyard.
Wow.
It was one of the most amazing mornings of filming I think I've ever had. There is, though, a slightly sad side to this, because he also found on a patch of wasteland not far away from where he lived, Maratus yanchep, which was known to be one of the most variable peacock spider species, only found in this tiny, tiny little area of wasteland. And in the ensuing months, that has been developed, and that peacock jumping spider has disappeared completely,
Well,
almost
no.
certainly extinct. An impossible miracle of nature that has gone from one single housing development, which is heartbreaking. But at the same time, the immense, heartwarming sense of seeing a young person finding something in their backyard, turning it into a hobby. He now has tens of thousands of followers on social media, has created world-class imagery of peacock jumping spiders, done it all on a teeny tiny little point-and-shoot camera in his own back garden, entirely self-taught. And that is, to me, the future of natural history filmmaking.
Love it.
How did he know what to look for then? Had he been taught by any adults, or he just literally come about this himself?
No, his
Wow.
family, they're very proud of him, but they have no
Aw.
existing interest in this whatsoever. He found it himself for the first time. He worked out how to film it himself. And the imagery that he comes up with, I mean, have a look at it on Instagram. It will blow your mind. And he's done everything within a couple of meters of his bedroom.
That's cool.
That's what it's
really
all
cool.
about, really, isn't it? If you find someone like that, it just fills you with kind of fire and inspiration. Absolutely awesome. Do we know what the main kind of impacts are for these spiders? Because obviously they use vibration quite a lot to communicate with others. I'm just wondering if living in an urban, complex environment has any impact on them negatively.
Oh, I mean, they're super, super visual. So they're salticids. They're in the jumping spider group, which, other than netcasters, have the biggest eyes to body size of any spider. Giant, great big eyes. If you look at them in macro, they are utterly adorable. They've got so much character, so much personality, but they are unusually visual. And that's why this incredible visual display has evolved, because that is how they interact with each other. But you're absolutely right. Vibration is huge. And, this, as you say, 50 odd different species, some of them have tiny distribution, and they are incredibly susceptible to things like development. So, yeah, it's something that we need to be so much more aware of. And the teeny tiny things that make the world go round, that are living under our noses, that we might never be aware of. I mean, you can guarantee that nobody living down the same cul-de-sac as Michael has any idea that they have these peacock jumping spiders in their back gardens. And if they just stopped and looked, it would be something entrancing that could entertain them for hours.
Yeah. They have to be some of the best dancers as well. And macro photography of species like peacock spiders, I mean, I could literally look at it forever. To be honest, it's brilliant. I have to mention another top dancer other than you, Steve. Has to be the flamingo. And what do you call them in your household?
Flingamingos.
Flamingos. They have this insane courtship display. They do this dance when they're in a group, synchronized, as I said, head flagging. They even kind of bring up their wings as well, almost like wing saluting. And it's all to do with synchronizing their breeding cycles, displaying to mates that they are fit and ready to mate. And also helps with kind of strengthening pair bonds as well. It's an incredible dance. But unlike the peacock spider, that's pretty much it's do or die, right? For a peacock spider, you're either one of the most flamboyant, successful males to mate with that female, or if you're a flamingo, you're kind of in a massive group, and if you make a mistake, it's fine. But I think it's a bit of a quirky, weird dance that makes them really beautiful to watch.
Do you guys know what the collective noun is for flamingos?
Oh my, yeah, how could we miss it?
No, I don't.
Go on, Lizzie.
Oh, flamboyance.
It's a flamboyance. We're doing an episode called Flamboyant, and we didn't even mention it. How about that?
I love it.
I want to tell you about another odd sort of bird-like thing. I actually put this in especially for you, Steve, and you may already be aware, but have you heard of something called a Myrasora jelly?
No.
No.
I mean, fair point, that might be my pronunciation being absolutely terrible. But there was a very recent paper that was published in Nature about this prehistoric lizard that has wings that kind of, to me, look like butterfly wings. They're crazy bright colours. They're not feathers, but they look like feathers. It's got these crazy feet that it can climb down the tree, and it's got a prehensile tail, which is like a spider monkey. It's a tail that it can use to grab things as well. And it's kind of got like monkey-like feet in the way that it climbs up and down the trees. And then it's got a big, long beak. Weirdest looking creature, super bright coloured, super flamboyant, but it outdates any of the first dinosaurs that got wings by 100 million years. So it existed
Wow.
100 million years before the first dinosaur got wings. It's pretty small, it's only 6 inches.
What is absolutely remarkable looking at this image is how similar it is to a modern Draco.
Are they the ones that have the kind of flappy thing?
Yes.
They are.
And it looks like this.
It's crazy cool looking, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
What makes me laugh the most is this specimen actually was in a private collection in 1939 by a guy called Louis Gravagel. I'm definitely not doing his name justice, but basically it was in a private collection. The guy thought it was just a fish, and nothing ever really was said about it until he died, and then it ended up in a museum, and then the museum staff were looking at it and they're like, those ribs look a bit weird, and then they realized it was this completely different creature. So its name, that Myrasora gravageli, actually means Gravagel's miraculous reptile.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, the Draco lizards are really quite something. They're a little bit smaller than that. They're not quite 6 inches in full length, and they have this patagium, which is exactly as you say, extended ribs with a flap of skin in between them. They are remarkably efficient at gliding, and they also have colours on that big kind of shield-like patagium that they use for gliding. So whether it evolved originally as a display and then became sort of like seconded to use as a gliding tool, who knows? But that is incredible that there is that difference of time between
Yeah.
the Myrasora that
Yeah.
you're talking about and the modern Draco is amazing. The discoveries that are still happening.
I think the thing that's like thrown researchers, I know we did a whole episode on furry at one point, but it is the idea that we used to think that feathers and furs evolved only from the same kind of lineages that made birds and mammals, but this thing that existed before, way before, suggests that there may also be other lines that things have evolved from.
Yeah. It's also interesting as well, isn't it? 'Cause I guess we don't think of reptiles as being flamboyant. We're talking about animals that are glamorous and colourful. You probably don't think about reptiles immediately when you hear that. But there are plenty of, particularly lizards around today, like the Draco, but also things like anole lizards. Have you seen anole lizards in the New World, in the Neotropics? These relatively small lizards, the males of which have a flap underneath their chin that they can completely fold away so it's invisible, or bring out if they want to display to other males or to females. And it's often coloured with incredible bright, lurid colours that they can use to display. They can even use it to slightly reflect the sunlight to get a better shade of colour on it, which is just so beautiful. And they can be convinced to do this in certain situations by flashing a piece of coloured card, the same kind of colour, and they're so hardwired that if you get close to them and you do that, the males are like, oh, there's someone in my territory, and they'll stand up nice and proud in a nice big high visible position and do the exact same thing, flashing this throat patch. I think it might be a gular actually they use to flash to other males.
Gular. I love that word.
And then agamid lizards. So there are certain kinds of agamids that will take on incredible bright colours at the time of year when they're most looking to intimidate males and to attract a female that they might not have for the whole of the rest of the year. And these flamboyant colours, a bright red head or a bright blue head, are often accompanied by doing press-ups. So again, they'll stand at a really obvious position with their head up high on display, and then they do push-ups like this to make the head appear more obvious, and they can be convinced to do that display by getting up close to them and tapping on the ground like this. So doing press-ups with your fingers, and the agamids will do it back to you, which is really quite something to see.
You made me laugh when you said about us not associating lizards with flamboyant, but I immediately got that come chameleon song in my head. And aren't they like pretty flamboyant in terms of the coloration? I mean, you have one in your house.
I do. My little boy's chameleon. One of the first things that we learn about chameleons is that they change colour to camouflage themselves, and they do. So they will change colour to match their environment. But the fastest and most dramatic colour changes you get from a chameleon are nothing to do with camouflage. It's all about display. And it's usually the males. Now, ours is a female. And if you get too close when she doesn't want you to, she will go almost jet black just about instantaneously. The colour changes so fast, it's so quick. And if she's in a good mood, she'll go really light in colour. But there are some, like panther chameleons, that the males can take on these brilliant colours, bright reds and oranges and whites, and little flashes of green and blue all over their bodies. And again, it is the ultimate flamboyant display to a female chameleon. It doesn't work when they're hunting. It doesn't help to disguise them, but they can change to match the bush that they're in the right sort of situation. But if they want to, to face off against a rival, or they want to attract a partner, that's when those colour changes happen, and they happen so quick.
It's got me thinking really about that ability to use that vibrancy or flamboyance when the time is right, and then also having those moments where they don't need them, or it would actually be a disadvantage, whether you're hiding from predators or you're not wanting to signal a certain level of fitness because of others in the area or dominance or whatever it may be. Sarah, while you were chatting earlier, I've also done a little bit of digging about prehistoric animals that also have that flamboyance. Even last year, we discovered a new horned dinosaur, Lococeratops rangiformis, from the late Cretaceous period. And the reason it's really cool is because they, like the other horned dinosaurs, have these kind of a big elaborate horns, but in a completely different place on their big, if you imagine like a big plate, like a big frill, head shield, if you like. And they have this weird kind of horn that comes round. It's bright in kind of orange and greeny colours. And scientists are excited about this because they were asking, well, what's driving these differences in how these flamboyant head shields have evolved? And they actually notice correlations with, elk, deer, and moose antlers, and how these ornaments have been driven in different directions because of sexual selection. So even back then, in the Cretaceous period, that diversity was there.
I'll still never get past what Steve told us about how dinosaurs were actually all these crazy jazzy colours. For me, every dinosaur is now crazy flamboyant in my head with feathers and stripes and dancing around.
So Lococeratops that you're talking about there is really interesting. It's in a group of dinosaurs called the ceratopsians, of which Triceratops is the one that's best known. And they were not feathered, as far as we understand. But when I first started studying paleontology, every single ceratopsian would have been shown as being like green or a dull brown sort of colour. And now, if you see paleo art of any animal in that group, and that head shield will be covered in colour. It will probably have bands of colour across it. It might well have bright greens and bright oranges and bright reds and whites. Because it seems most likely that is its primary use. It was originally considered that it must be used as a defense, but quite a few of them have big holes in the middle of them, which would just have been covered with skin. So it seems unlikely that it would have been really good for that. So possibly it was much more of a headpiece, just kind of like you're describing. It could be a way of showing off of absolute perfect flamboyance.
So as you've just said, those traits are fixed traits. Those head shields are there. That flamboyance exists. They can't, flap it away or do something funky to kind of decide whether that is a trait they want to display or not. I'd imagine part of that is depending on whether they are a top predator and whether they have to kind of consider those risks. But for a lot of the species that we've talked about, they do have that option now to hide those traits should they need, because it's a constant balance, isn't it, between having something that does signal fitness and then also making sure that you're not kind of displaying yourself in ways that's going to be risky to survival.
I've got a cracking example of that, Lizzie, actually,
Yeah.
which is an example of flamboyance that is not even attached to the animal itself.
Oh,
Have you guys heard of bowerbirds?
yes.
Heard of them, but not enough to generate an image in my head.
So bowerbirds, most of them kind of look like crows. That they're not incredibly dramatic, but they are really well known for creating a bower. This is not a nest; it is a structure that the males create in which they dance for the females. So they create a theatre, they create a stage on which they will perform various intricate dances to attract the attention of a female. And I've been lucky enough to film with a couple of different species. One of those, McGregor's bowerbird in New Guinea, will clear a perfect circular portion of the forest floor, create a little wall around it, and then in the centre there is a spike which is made to look like a Christmas tree. Absolutely incredible ornamented display in the centre of it, and the bowerbird will dance around it. But in Australia, in I think the Atherton tablelands, I filmed with something called the satin bowerbird. And the satin bowerbird creates an avenue with sort of sticks on either side curving in towards it, and the bowerbird will dance in the centre for the female. But this is the kicker. The satin bowerbird adorns the front of his bower with blue objects. In nature, that would be blue beetle wing casings, it would be blue flowers. And if anything gets put into that display that is not blue, he gets cross. Now, nowadays, in the Atherton tablelands, lots and lots of people around, so a lot of those bowers are now adorned with blue pen lids and blue. I even saw blue plastic toy soldiers in amongst the satin bowerbirds display at the front of his avenue. And there was one in the Atherton tablelands where the male is so used to human beings being around that I crawled right up to the bower while he was in it, and I took a little red pen lid and put it in amongst his blue collection on the front of the bower, and he picked it up and threw it to the side and came right up into my face and was like, "Ah! Ah!"
Fuming.
before performing again with his beautiful banquet of blue and the slightly dappled green female nearby watching, going, yeah, maybe not. There's some people that say that there are some kinds of bowerbird that will even fly up to the forest canopy and pluck a hole in the forest canopy so that at the right time of day, a beam of sunlight will come down and illuminate like a spotlight the front of his bower stage for him to dance in. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the satin bowerbird.
You mentioned blue, Steve. I remember on our colourful podcast that blue was a rare colour in nature.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just like a high value to them then?
100%. 100%.
But also, I suppose, in the way that they perceive the colour, we're seeing blue. They might see like some crazy technicolor, beautiful thing in their eyesight as well,
Yeah.
to be fair.
Yeah.
And come full circle is that sensory bias, guys. Remember that I said at the top of this podcast.
Yeah.
As you say, it's rare and they see different wavelengths of light to us, but particularly striking for the satin bowerbird.
Speaking of crazy colours in locations that I never expected, like toy soldiers ending up in birds' nests, I had no idea in the Scottish lochs you have nudibranchs, loads of nudibranchs. And for anyone that doesn't know, a nudibranch is kind of like a sea slug, isn't it, really? But like incredibly colourful miniature sea slugs. But if you've ever dove in the UK, especially in a tidal area, you'll know that the visibility can be somewhat hit and miss.
Yeah.
But the idea of just swimming along in the fog and suddenly seeing these crazy, flamboyant, beautiful nudibranchs is mind-blowing to me. I can't believe I didn't realise it, but there's over 100 in Scotland.
We have some crazy ones down here, actually. And yesterday I was out rock pooling with my kids, and we were looking for nudibranchs, but here they're like the size of a grain of rice. They're really difficult to find, but you look at them up close and they are so incredibly beautiful. But my little boy went, Daddy, what's this? And covering just underneath the water, one of these rock pools, was this seaweed which looked like a rainbow.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
rainbow rack, which is a kind of seaweed, which it seems quite common in the rock pools around here. But
Mm.
the most amazing thing is, take it out of the water, the rainbow sheen completely disappears. It's only when it's just under the surface that you can see it. And it is so brilliant. The colours were just, transfixing.
Yeah, super vibrant. And actually, down your way, Steve, I just recently did a dive with cuttlefish and secretly was also keeping my eye out in the kelp because there was also a sighting of a rainbow nudibranch seen in Cornwall, and it's attracted divers from all over. Um, but a different kind of function to what we've already talked about in nudibranchs, because many nudibranchs are specialist feeders, and a lot of that vibrancy that you do see, and I highly recommend Googling a rainbow nudibranch if you haven't seen one. They
I'm
are
doing it right now.
incredible. They've Rainbow nudibranchs are another level. They've got kind of a pink head with dipped white eye stalks, and then their whole body is covered in like this bluey purple, yellowy colour. I mean, it's perfect for signalling, don't eat me. And in a place like a dull Scottish loch, like you say, Sarah, or against a bit of green kelp, they are the ultimate warning sign not to be eaten. And that is what kind of puts nudibranchs in a different category for why they use this vibrancy and flamboyance. It's all about signalling to predators not to eat me, but they are funky.
I've got an underwater critter which falls into the flamboyant category, but for different reasons. It's in what is fast becoming my kids' favourite book in the world, Octopus's Underwater Wonders by Cherie Maris. And this one, I didn't know this existed, is the glowing sucker octopus, which is found down about 4,000 metres below the surface of the North Atlantic. It is about half a metre in diameter, and it's red in colour, so it would be as good as invisible to anything that's swimming around in the deep sea, apart from its suckers, and the suckers that are lining both its arms and also the kind of the skirt that links them up as well. They glow with bioluminescence. So it's like a whole bunch of floating fairy lights just travelling through the
That's
water. And
so
those
cool.
look
Come
like
on.
an appetizing meal to something that swims in and gets sucked up in the skirts of the octopus. That is a bit of lethal flamboyance at its very, very best.
Since we're on to our marine flamboyant creatures, there aren't many other creatures that are as flamboyant as the fairy wrasse. It's a huge, huge group. They're found mostly in the Indo-Pacific of fish. They are the second most species-rich genus in the second most species-rich fish family in the ocean. So basically, all you need to know is they come in almost every single colour of a rainbow, and they're the ones you're most likely to see if you go into an aquarium. So they're quite small in size, maybe like an inch, 2 inches, and they can be in like bright pinks, blues, greens, multiple colours all over them. And we didn't really understand why there was so much diversity in them. And recently, scientists have connected that using genetic analysis to the Ice Age. So most of the diversity that we see in these fairy wrasse happened in the last 1 to 3 million years, which is the last ice age that we had. Now, the reason being is when we had the great big ice caps forming that took a lot of water out of the ocean, and then these fish became landlocked essentially in little areas, and then competed with each other and bred and reproduced and got a bit of variation within those little niches. But then as the ice melted, it almost acted like a flush system and pumped them all back together again. And then they're able to interbreed, and those species, they then diversified again. And, you have that kind of freezing and melting and freezing and melting for a period of time. And that is essentially how we ended up with so many fairy wrasse.
Love it. Well, look, we know that our marine worlds are incredibly flamboyant. I just want to throw in one more very quick species that we can't ignore. I've never filmed with one myself, but I've kind of been inspired after trying to film them down in Cornwall, and actually for the first time spending a bit of time with them in the shallows. That dive was with common cuttlefish, but of course we can't not talk about or just reference the fact that there is a species that actually has flamboyance in the name. It's the flamboyant cuttlefish. For those that don't know, they are a cephalopod. They are curious, they're intelligent. The closest I've come to a cuttlefish before that dive was in Plymouth Aquarium, where a science team were going to release them back into the wild, and I walked past this big tub and this cuttlefish just squirted water at me and all the team as we walked past. So they are totally aware, and spending time in the water with them, you see just how, in my opinion, they are flamboyant in their character, how they look visually, their ability to change colour, Steve's already talked about. And of course, they've got this beautiful fin skirt that they just move beautifully through the water.
So I'm right in thinking as well, the flamboyant cuttlefish, it's crazy bright colours.
Yeah.
Same kind of fish that you've been describing, just living in a different place. But they only use those bright colours as a display every now and again. They don't look like that all the time, right?
Exactly, yeah. So the flamboyant cuttlefish is found in, Indo-Pacific waters. It's got this ability to flash these brilliant reds and yellows and blues, bold colours. And we know that a lot of our cephalopods have this ability to change colour, to change shape, skin texture. And we talked about that previously, so I don't want to go into it too much. But I thought we just had to nod to just how beautiful the flamboyant cuttlefish is. They're also much smaller than our commons that we get here in the UK, but a brilliant animal.
Yeah, fully grown. They're about the size of an old-fashioned matchbox, and they can camouflage. They can pinch their body into a particular shape and match the colour of the surroundings around them. But when they're hunting, they wander down the seabed using their arms to walk, which is kind of unlike any
They
other
walk?
cuttlefish that I've seen.
Yeah.
And as they do, they send waves of light over the body, and it looks like what they're doing is hypnotizing or entrancing the small shrimp that they feed on. Then as they get close, they fire out a pair of feeding tentacles, which are pretty much linked together, and snatch a hold of the food that's in front of them. It happens incredibly quickly, so fast that you can barely get it with the naked eye, but we managed to film it in high speed in Lembeh Strait earlier this year, and you see the two tentacles firing out. They've got clubs on the end of them, and they fire out and split as they fire, grab a hold of the shrimp, bring it back in again, mash it, smash it, swallow it down. They are one of the most mind-bending of creatures to watch. Only teeny tiny, but they are so brilliant.
I think I'm going to reference that in a kid's book, Steve. I really liked that line. Mash it, smash it, swallow it down. Real ring to
You
it.
can have that one for free.
Thank you. Make a note.
That is it for today. Remember, you'll have a Q&A episode coming your way on Friday. So remember to send your questions to questions@that'sjustwild.com and we'll get to it.
That's Just Wild is an original Fresh Air production. Its producers are Eva Higginbotham and Izzy Clark. You can follow us on your favourite podcast app. Leave us a review. It makes all the difference to the whole team. And for ad-free listening, our newsletter, special deep dive episodes and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com. Remember, we're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and you can find us at That's Just Wild Pod.
Thanks for listening.